clear that getting the game on remains an important consideration, but only when conditions are safe for both players and umpires. Play should not start, continue, or resume if conditions are dangerous or unreasonable. Dangerous means that the whole of the field of play needs to be free of any actual and foreseeable risk to the safety of any player or umpire. When considering this, you should always err on the side of caution. If all or any of the following conditions prevail, play should not start or continue. If there is any surface or standing water anywhere on the playing area. Fielders are unable to turn and run at broadly full speed. Bowlers are unable to deliver the ball without slipping from starting their run-up to completing the delivery. Batsmen are unable to play shots or run and turn without slipping. In addition, it would also be dangerous if the light were insufficient to enable all players and umpires to see the ball well enough to carry out their roles. Unreasonable means that it would not be sensible for play to proceed, even though conditions may not be dangerous. For example, play may continue if it starts to rain. However, there may come a time when the rain becomes so heavy or persistent that it would be unreasonable for play to continue, even though conditions are still not dangerous. Similarly, play would be suspended if there were a sudden downpour. Other examples of unreasonable conditions might involve a serious injury or a swarm of bees. When considering what is and what is not unreasonable, be aware that play should not be suspended simply because conditions are not ideal. An umpire must consider it unreasonable for play to continue before suspending play. The umpires together agree that the conditions of ground, weather and light, or any other circumstances are dangerous or unreasonable, they shall immediately suspend play or not allow play to start or resume. Ideally, umpires will find common ground upon which they agree. However, if an agreement cannot be reached, then play must be immediately suspended. If such a decision is made, the umpires must then support each other. When making inspections, umpires need to consider the following factors. The outfield must not be so wet that it deprives the fielders of free movement when fielding or attempting to field the ball. Fielders should be able to move, turn and run broadly at full pace without slipping and risking injury. There should be no surface water visible anywhere on the playing area, and there should be no areas where simply by pressing a foot on the turf, water is brought to the surface. If there are areas of concern on the outfield that are preventing play from starting, it may be possible for the boundary to be brought in to eliminate the problems. The area immediately beyond the boundary should also be included in the inspection process. The momentum of fielders chasing or catching a ball can often take them into this area. The area where the batsman stands needs to be dry and firm enough to enable a firm foothold. Similar consideration must be given to the areas that he or she would move into for the execution of a shot and setting off for a run. Grass needs to be dry and firm enough to allow the batsman to run freely between the wickets. These are often problem areas if the covers haven't extended far enough over the sides of the pitch. The areas where the batsmen turn for a further run are of major concern. It can be seen from the picture that considerable force through the feet is applied to the turf. As the batsman may be off balance at this stage, they are liable to slip if underfoot conditions are not suitable. At the far end, repairs to previous pitches have taken place, which are likely to be particularly hazardous. The area of the bowler's delivery stride should be firm and secure enough to ensure that they will not slip in their action, and similar thinking should also be applied to the follow-through areas. The bowler's run-ups should be firm and dry enough to give a good foothold on their approach to the pitch. Particular attention should be given to the take-off areas. Both ends and both sides of the pitch should receive close inspection. The laws do not prohibit cricket being played when it's raining, provided it is not dangerous or unreasonable. Umpires should establish whether the competition regulations include specific provisions as to what to do in the event of rain. Starting, continuing or resuming in rain has to be a judgment call. It is vital for umpires to have discussed this matter before the match and to have an agreed position. Provided the ground conditions are not dangerous or unreasonable, allowing play to start, continue or resume in light rain is acceptable. However, umpires must suspend play immediately if either of them concludes that the ground conditions have become dangerous or unreasonable. If, for example, the players start slipping. Play must be suspended immediately if there is sudden thunder without lightning, there is lightning seen in the clouds, The flash to bang time is 40 seconds or less, and/or there is a lightning strike on the ground or a building nearby. Time should not be wasted covering the pitch. Metal frame pitch covers or machinery should not be moved. Umpires must keep watching and listening, but play may only resume 30 minutes after the last thunderclap. The umpires are the sole judges of whether the light is suitable for play to start, continue or resume. It must be the case that both the umpires and the players can see the ball clearly in its flight. It is worth bearing in mind that this can be as much a problem for the fielders as for the batsmen. The safety of the players must always be uppermost in the umpires' minds.
Okay, so just coming back out of that, as we can tell, awful lot of information in there. Remember that you're a team in the middle. If one umpire believes that it's dangerous or unfair to continue play, you decide and you continue as a team. That is very important. If one person thinks that it's time to suspend, it is your duty to support your colleague. I've put a document together on the website that basically puts that through in basically 10 steps, and the points to be looking at to suspend play and what to do before the start of play. The very important points to remember on that are the steps that you must follow if there is any lightning in the air or forecast. Please read that again before the season starts. I can't emphasize that enough. Do we have any questions before I move on a little bit further? Okay, all quite straightforward. Joe, you're on mute, by the way, just from the fact that I think I'm trying to talk.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever heard that if there's thunder, you have to wait. You can't play for 30 minutes after the last one. I've never heard of 30 minutes.
That's been around for at least 3 years, I'm afraid, Joe.
I know some players would never believe that.
Well, we as has been pointed out, are the sole arbitrators of ground weather and light. If we don't consider it fair, we do not carry on. Okay. You will have players who think that they can play in thunderstorms, but if something goes wrong or something happens, it is coming down on us, and every question or every finger will be pointed towards the umpires. It won't be because that player thought that he could play in that. It is our decision. If they don't like it, that's unfortunate, but it's us who have to make the decision at the end of the day. Just brings me to the points. Not every ground is going to have the same facilities and equipment that some of our senior grounds will see as standard. For example, we'll be going out to the likes of the community parks, which certainly won't have super soakers or anything like that. So the decisions that we made at some grounds won't be the same, and that will be made on other grounds. The senior grounds will have more than likely have grounds that you'll speak to throughout the day. They'll probably have sawdust. They'll have spikes and forks, super soakers, as I discussed. When you show up at a ground, if there's any possibility of an interruption in play, make sure that you have a plan for that day as to what you're going to do. If there are covers in place, who's going to put the covers on? Where are the covers going to be stored during play? Are they a nice easy place to get to? if play is suspended. Who's going to put them on? Are they expecting the players just to do it? Some grounds, the groundsman will put them on for you. If you're playing on an artificial, are they going to cover it, or are they just going to leave it as you walk off? These are all the questions that you have to have answers to before that eventuality happens. Okay, are we all happy? All makes sense? Any other suggestions or any other comments that anybody wants to add to that? Okay, I'll take silence as golden, and we'll move on. As the video pointed out, we might be seen as conservative, but we are the sole arbitrators. That's the point that I want to get across tonight. Now, as I shared, as we shared before tonight, there was a game scenario that we shared around that had 3 stoppages of play. I hope everybody has at least attempted these scenarios in order to work through them tonight. Okay, so just to bear with me 2 seconds, we're going to bring it up, and then we'll work on the calculations themselves. Sorry about this. I had some quite bad IT issues literally just before the call. Otherwise, I'd have had all these ready and up.
Will, can I just make a comment there about the
Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
About the lightning.
You may, yeah.
So that document there you've put up is exactly as I see it. There was a bit on the ECB/ACO presentation there that might have caused some confusion. It said, like, if you hear thunder, suspend, I think, which isn't the case. Like, what you have on that document is the case. So, if there's lightning around the grounds, you suspend play, but just hearing thunder isn't enough, is no reason to suspend. So, the rule that's sort of on there, that 30-30 rule. So if there's less than 30 seconds between the thunder and the lightning, then stop play and then don't come back on for 30 minutes after the last thunder. But just, if you hear thunder, it could be like, 50, 100 miles away. So there's no need to suspend play every time you hear thunder. It's what you have on the document you put up, Will, is dead right. There was just something confusing there, I think, on the
actual presentation itself. Okay, so apologies on that. Okay, thanks for pointing that out, Paul. At the end of the day, I don't claim to be the fountain of knowledge. So if you do find a gap, please point it out. Okay. Okay, so we'll just go to the share screen again here. Okay, so we have a standard 50 over a side game. 4 minutes per over, 30 minutes allowance, and a 30 minutes scheduled for tea. Play is due to start at 12 o'clock, and we have a standard cessation time of 17:40, which is full playing time plus 30 minutes for tea and 30 minutes allowance. Okay, so just always keep that time in the back of your mind. So for the first example, can we have one of the new umpires please explain their answers, please?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's just me. Is the screen fuzzy for everyone, or is it just my screen?
No, it's fuzzy for us as well.
Yeah, it's fuzzy for everyone, I think.
Okay, I'll share. I'll put it up then, Will, for you. Give us a second.
Okay, I'll stop sharing then. So I'm obviously having severe problems here. So
Peter, pull up the email?
Yeah, I will just have to find it.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. Okay.
Sorry, y'all. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that any better?
That's great. Thanks, Peter. Okay. If I can offer, maybe it's a bit harsh on the brand news, but maybe a non-grade 4 umpire maybe wishes to offer their answers.
Or, Will, I don't mind it going if you want.
Okay. Always love a volunteer, as you know, Kier.
Oh, at least then this is the easy one. Then I got the. So I'm assuming there's a 30-minute allowance for without deduction of overs, as the break was 30 minutes. The time lost will be 30 minutes, but no overs lost, as it's within the 30 minutes allowed.
Excellent. Okay. So just answer the 2 questions, and there we are. So
And then,
is there any time lost from the game?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes, there's 30 minutes, but
it's down
but
to
no,
it's against your allowance.
Yeah, it's against your allowance, and consequently there's no overs lost.
Perfect.
At that point, yeah.
What actions would you do before the game recommences, or as you come off the ground?
You asked me, Will, is it?
You're a volunteer here.
Okay, sorry. So no, I'm going to be. The question is, what umpire actions required before start of the game? Discuss. So what we do is discuss the regulations, consult with the groundsman, particularly if you're aware that the weather, it may be a day affected by weather. Discuss with the groundsman location of covers, sawdust, availability of ground staff or people to move covers.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, Kieran, and the question was more to, and that should have been at the restart of the game. You've just called suspension of play at 12:39. So what do you do as an umpire between 12:39 and 1:09?
1:09. Well, obviously you call the players off. You speak with the scorers. You consult with the captain. Advise them what's going on. Before resumption of play, you go out, do a pitch inspection. Just satisfy yourself that the areas where the bowler's running in is not too dangerous or unreasonable, and that popping holes around the popping crease and that are safe, and that it's also safe for the batsman to play shots, and also for the fielder that the fielder can freely move without causing injury to himself.
All great points. Do you mind me asking where the ball is at this stage? Where did the ball go?
Well, you took the ball off the bowler or fielders before you left the field of play.
Excellent. Okay, so it's under the umpire's control. Excellent.
Yeah.
You've just told everybody that we're going to be restarting at 1:09. Would you maybe ask for a DLS, or do you think that that's required?
15 overs. Well, it depends what you assume are in the regulations.
It's a bit of a red herring. Guaranteed, you'll have at least one player ask you.
I'll jump and say no.
Perfect. Because there hasn't been any change or loss of overs, there is no requirement for a DLS sheet. However, I would have a discussion with both captains and scorers to make them aware that any further loss of time or overs or play will result in a reduction. because you've now used your full allotment of time. Okay. Thank you very much, Kieran. Really appreciate it. Very brave of you to be to be the first volunteer. We'll move on.
No worries. Well, cheers.
We've had wonderful play for another 25 overs. We've had 100 minutes of play, and we've called suspension of play again. Anybody else wish to volunteer their calculations? Maybe someone who's not one of the newbies. Someone else who's sitting in the shadows, maybe. Don't worry, I'll be calling on the really experienced umpires for the scenario 3. Don't be shy, gentlemen. Don't be shy. Maybe a current Irish international who's currently hasn't got a video on, maybe.
Who, me?
Well, it could be yourself, Mr. Ryan. I'm just trying to get volunteers here.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I've actually got. I've written down 2 scenarios for part 2.
Interesting. Okay.
So obviously, play suspended at just 10 to 3. Give a minute, and so between then and 15:09, 20 minutes lost. Which I calculate at. What was I going? So what's the question there? Does the first innings continue? Yes. How many overs and new cessation time of first innings? I have 47 overs and 350 final time, finish time.
Okay.
And then, so part B is times the second innings start 420 I have, and 47 overs. And then part C, obviously tell the skipper the new overs, and the number of overs per bowler, etc. And that is a 47 over game.
Okay.
Then I also have the option to reduce T to 10 minutes. So therefore you don't lose any overs. So the first innings continue. Yes, I still have it as a 50 over game, and I reduced the T to 10 minutes. And then I have a resulting in the 4:10 finish. I think it is. And then the second inning starts at 4:20, still 50 overs. And then part C is obviously tell the skippers and stuff that the break is only 10 minutes.
Okay. I love the idea of reducing T. Unfortunately, we didn't have the option of reducing T, but it is something that is always up for discussion. I should have put it out that you didn't have the allowance of reducing T time, so apologies on that. But I like your thinking. If I may, how did you come to a reduction of 3 overs?
Well, 20 minutes. I'm trying to just remember now. So 20 minutes is 10 minutes from each inning. 20 minutes is 4 into 20 is 5, and then I rounded up 6.
You are having a suspension in the first innings. The first innings calculation is 8 minutes. So it's only 2.5, I'm afraid.
Well, is it not 4 minutes and over?
No, 4 minutes and over is if the disruption or the suspension is in the second innings. What
so
you
8
will have,
minutes. So
yeah,
8 minutes. So it's 2.5 from the first innings.
2 overs with
Yeah.
4 minutes carried over to your next calculation.
Kevin, that's from the match, not from the innings.
Yeah.
It's two overs from the 2 overs from both the innings.
Okay, so it should be a 48 over game.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Again,
So what do you do with those? What do you do with
You
those
should
extra
always
minutes
round
that you have?
down.
You always round down to get as much cricket played as possible, which is why I was saying I applaud your thinking of reducing tea time to try and keep it as a 50 over game. Unfortunately, we don't have that facility. But I do like the thinking, and certainly it is discussed within the OCC at the moment, but we haven't got to that stage.
So you can't do that in the league? Oh, that's stupid, in my opinion. But anyway, thank you.
No worries. Just to go through the calculations here, okay? You have a 50 over game still. 35 overs have been completed. Time played is 139 minutes. So your interruption is at 4:49. It's not a round up or round down. Okay. You then have a restart time of 3:09. So that's 20 minutes of loss of play. You used your allowance of the 30 minutes. So immediately you're losing time off the game. You've lost 2 overs. As I say, you've got 4 minutes and then to carry on to further calculations. Innings is now reduced down to 48 overs. The overs that are remaining at 13, with 53 minutes left in order to bowl those overs. And you must start the 47th over because it's an interrupted innings at 4:02. So those are the important pieces of information to have in that. The other point that has to be raised with the captain is if their 4th bowler is down to bowl the next over, they cannot, as only 3 bowlers can complete 10 overs due to a loss. So the maximum that the other 2 bowlers can bowl is 9. He can't bowl a 10th over if he's going to be the 4th bowler who does so.
But that's assuming they're only used 4 bowlers, though.
You've got 3 bowlers who bowl 10 each. You then have a 4th bowler who wants to come in and finish his allotment. He wants to bowl
if he's already bowled 9, you're right. He can't bowl another one. Yeah, but
that's what I'm saying. He can't bowl a 10th over. It's just a point to raise to a captain as you're walking back out, just to remind him that he can only have 3 bowlers to complete the full allotment of 10, because there's been a reduction in overs.
Yeah, just so there's a set of tables in the regulations to consult on that one.
Absolutely. But it's just match management. It's just points to raise. Again, like our earlier interruption, we take control of the ball. With this one, we obviously make sure that we get a DLS sheet because there will be a change of scores. Okay, because there is a change in overs. At what time will the second inning start? Kevin, what was your time again for your second innings to start?
I had 4:20.
Okay, it'll be 4:32 because you've got 30 minutes of tea, and your cessation time was 4:02. Now I appreciate that some of these mightn't be overly realistic, but these are just pure calculations. Adapting these to match management and on field, that's up to you, and that's up to you on the day. For example, the last 2 overs might take 20 minutes and might take 20 minutes to bowl, and obviously people have to have a bit of lunch and changing innings and these kind of things. But these are things to discuss with your colleague on the day. Any other questions on scenario 2 before we move on to scenario 3, which I think is going to be the real needle in the haystack for everybody?
Just with regards to the reducing of tea to 10 minutes, does that include changeover between innings, or is that just the changeover between innings?
Because we don't have a reduced time of tea, that's a bit of a red herring at the moment. It's something that the OCC are discussing about having a tea of just 10 minutes, which would be your change of innings time.
So essentially, no tea then, basically.
If you want to have it like that, especially under current COVID conditions and not having tea rooms and the like, it is something that is probably more possible this year. Under current conditions. However, by the time we come around to 50 over cricket in July, things might hopefully have changed.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So moving. Yep.
Sorry, Will. Just one thing to add there. Don't forget, there'll be no Duckworth Lewis sheet in because we're still in the first innings. So you don't need, there'll be no printouts yet in question 2.
Yes.
But the scorers will need to put it into their Duckworth Lewis calculator.
Yes.
Yeah,
it needs to be,
scores
it
need
needs
to
to be
keep
noted
all
for
the
later on. Yeah.
scores need to keep all the notes. Yeah.
Would it have been worth considering at 35 overs to have tea after? It's given that there was going to be a delay, then just bring tea forward to save on time.
It certainly is. It certainly is a possibility, Kieran. As I say, it could be a match management issue, but you could find that it's a very, very overcast day, so you can't guarantee that that should be back out. These scenarios were purely done as a calculation format. As I say, on the day you could bring it forward, but I would certainly follow that after you've had quite a detailed conversation with the groundsman or any of the knowledgeable local players and who would know the local conditions and these kind of things before you start messing around with the early tees and delays and these kind of things. As I say, tonight is purely about the calculations and how you would format the calculations and work from there. I appreciate if you worked out and you actually had these exact conditions on a game, you might construct it slightly differently. So I take your points on board.
Very well. I'll just actually put that to Paul. What conditions that you will decide? I mean, what are you looking at to decide that you're going to cut the tea time? Is there any particular things that are you just going to, at the very first instant, you start reducing the overs, or you just cut the tea time? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I suppose you don't want to end it to say you had tea and then you went out and the side batting first, we're left with say 3 innings to bat. You want to make sure if you're going to take an early tea, that there were, if the first innings hadn't ended, you want to make sure they had at least, I don't know, an hour's play still to bat. So I think that would probably be about the only thing you take into consideration, to be honest. And whether, it sounds quite unconnected to cricket, but whether the food is there, whether the food delivery is there, or whether the sandwiches have arrived or the curries arrived or whatever. So, which is probably more common. But a big thing is, you want to make sure the ground is fit, and you don't want to hamstring yourself by saying you're going to be ready and maybe the ground isn't ready yet, and then so take your time and make sure the first innings has, I'd say getting on for 3/4 an hour to an hour of play in that last session of the first innings.
More importantly, when do we start actually cutting the tea time? I mean, forget about taking early tea. In this case, let's say there's only a 20-minute break.
Yeah, you can't in Leinster. It's a 30-minute break. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's just. I know you can't do that in Leinster, but if you're looking at it, because we might be going down to north or northwest, I'm just thinking about it in the terms that because Kevin brought it up about actually reducing the tea. So in this case, my opinion would be that you looked at it and you said that it's going to be it's a short shower, 20 minutes break. We might be out playing in 20 minutes. You have already decided that based on conditions you observed. So would it be just simpler to just reduce the 2 overs, or make up by reducing the tea time? Which would be the preference in this case?
Personally, so if we could reduce the time, and especially in club cricket, there's a lot just thinking about people's welfare. So take away from the cricket. If people need food, they might, and if they haven't had a chance to eat earlier on, you can't reduce it to 10 minutes, for instance, because that's just not enough time to have food. Sometimes there might be a bit of a walk to the pavilion, or 20 minutes might just be too short. So to be honest, especially in club cricket, the welfare of the players and just the amount of time you need would be the only thing I'd be thinking of. So if everybody has already eaten, and you can get rid of that. Well, then sure, you could go down to 10 minutes if you're reducing the tee. But if people have got to eat, for instance, or if people have got to, maybe the umpires actually need to rest, for instance, then it's the welfare side of things is probably just as important.
That's perfect.
Thanks very much,
That's what I was
Paul.
looking for.
Just before we move on, is there anybody who has a different set of answers that wants them discussed? I.e., the standard calculations that are down there and that we've gone through. Has anybody got any very strange answers which they're puzzled as to and why their answers are not correct? So everybody's happy with cessation times of 4:02, and the next innings will start at 4:32. So everybody's happy with that for 48 overs. Okay, excellent. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure before we move on. There's one or two smiles around the place, so I'm a little bit unsure, but obviously if you're happy, that's fine. Okay, so we have the real fun time of play suspended after 21 overs of the second innings. Everybody's a little bit annoyed and probably a little bit pissed off that there's been so much rain around. So you'll probably have 22 very grumpy players going on at the moment. So there's your first match management problem to sort out. So we suspend play at 4 minutes to 6. We're going to restart at 6:13. Is there any further time that we have lost from the game? Do we have any of our experienced umpires who want to volunteer their answers? Or sorry, I heard someone wanting to jump in there. Does anybody else want to volunteer?
No, not quite. But could you scroll up because I can't see the bottom of the sheet there? Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Cool. Okay, we'll just run through this step by step. We have 48 overs to play in the innings. Agreed? We have bowled 21 overs. We have had 84 minutes of playing time. The time of the interruption is 5:56. We've agreed a restart time of 6:13, which is 17 minutes in total. We have no time allowance left, as we used it earlier. We've lost 17 minutes. 4 overs will be lost because it's 4 overs. Sorry, 4 minutes per over to be lost. The innings is going to be reduced down to 44 overs. The time in the innings is 176, which is 4 times 44. 23 overs are remaining. The new cessation time is going to be 7:45, of which they are going to be bowling in the start of the 43rd over. Everybody happy with those calculations?
No.
Everybody, I've seen a number of shaking heads, which I was really worried about.
And you just go through your calculations for.
I think, yeah. Even reading through, I think I've done something wrong here.
You've lost a half an hour already, Will. So
yeah, you don't have that. That's fine.
So that would put the session of play back to 8:10, surely.
No.
Did you carry the 4 minutes lost and that we didn't use in the first innings?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's
Yeah,
4 minutes left over from part 2, isn't it?
Yep. Good man.
So it should only be 13 minutes lost, is it? You take those 4 minutes off the 17.
No, you actually add it on because
you add them on. Okay, so it makes 21. Okay.
So it's 21, which means we've
5
lost
overs.
5 overs.
5 hours.
Which makes far more sense, and I couldn't understand why I was piddling around. Perfect. There were 43 overs.
Sorry, can you just explain From where is that 4-minute carryover again?
In the Daniel, in the first innings, remember we lost
20 minutes.
Yes.
We divided that by 8.
Right.
And we got 2. There was a reminder of 4 minutes. Get that? In the second interruption, have a look.
Sorry. Just why is it not divided by 8? Sorry, just to want to confirm.
Okay, in the first innings, you divided by 8, and 2 minutes for 2 overs every 8 minutes is lost from the match.
Yeah.
So the calculation is this: so total of 4 overs are lost. That's from the matches 100 overs match, right?
Yes, and then it's reduced to 48 per innings.
You subtract the 4 from 100, it's 96.
Yeah.
And 96 divided by 2 is 48 overs a side.
Yeah, sure.
So you got that part, right?
Yes.
But you divided 20 by 8. If you look at the wordings of the regulations, it's 2 overs lost every 8 minutes. Okay?
Yes.
So 20 divided by 8 is 16.
Oh, okay. So that's where the 4 minutes carry over.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I am a little confused as to why the half an hour isn't added on to the session time.
You already added it in the first inning.
Already been used in the calculation in the first innings.
Yes, but doesn't that, because you've lost half an hour, doesn't that put it back by half an hour, the entire match?
Yes, your original time on a 12 o'clock start is to finish at what time?
9:40 to 17:40 here.
17:10. If you hadn't had any break in time.
Richard, I think the wording on that is slightly
right. Okay.
The cessation time of 1940 includes the 30 minutes additional time.
My apologies. Thank you.
No, not sure. I don't think that's your fault, to be honest.
Would you not assume that the 1940 is your cutoff time, so everything works from that time back? So you'd work whatever amount of time is left and divide it out to calculate the overs.
You're working with it normally. That's why I was talking about it earlier. Your 1940 is your maximum cessation time, including playing time and allowance time. Normally, you'd be within one over of time to within that on your calculations to work it back through.
Mm-hmm. But would you assume, given the amount of time you have left to work with, and assuming a 4 minutes per over, and then the balance then is what the remaining overs will be?
I'm a little bit lost by your question, Kieran. Sorry.
So if you hit 21 overs in the second innings, and given the time, you're off for
17 minutes.
17 minutes, yeah. So basically, you're not looking at when you resume. You've decided to restart at 6:13. Are you not working with 100? An hour and 27 minutes. So will you not factor in how many overs, given there's 4 minutes per over, that you'll divide that out and see how many overs are left, and that becomes your recalculated number of overs?
Kieran, in Interpro and International, it's done that way. It's done like you start off with a set number of minutes, and depending on how much time you've lost and how many allowances you have, you're left with a set number of minutes, and then you divide by the number of overs or the minutes per over and stuff. So you work back in international cricket and in Interpro cricket. But in club cricket, the wording of the regs, if I remember correctly, are done slightly differently. So you do your calculations forward. So your
just lost you, Aidan.
He's pointing at Renault.
I think we've just lost this. We're back.
8 minutes past the end time. So you actually, if you work back from the end date, from the end time, you'll come up with a slightly different figure than if you calculate forward from the time you're at the moment. And I know I'm not explaining it properly, but if you'll come up with a different answer if you work backwards.
Okay, so you're actually rolling the time forward. In fact, so you can actually go beyond the cessation time, the official cessation time.
You can you could very well end up slightly past the cessation time by a few minutes, but you won't end up 15 or 20 minutes past the cessation time. You should only end up about
5 minutes, maybe.
Sort of 4 or 5 minutes past it, max, I would imagine.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
So apologies on that. That's a miscalculation from me, but it just goes to show why it's so important that when you're with your colleague that you do.
Yeah, I'll be on in it. I'm looking
Peter,
at another
shut up.
Presentation over here, so I'll be on when you need me. Just shout or WhatsApp me.
Cheers for that, Peter. Thanks, mate.
Okay, apologies on that. My point that I was getting to, it just goes to show how important it is that when you're with your colleague, do your calculations separately and then come together to agree what the correct calculation is. For example, as Aidan's correctly pointed out, I completely lost track of my carryover of 4 minutes, and as a result, I had a different answer to what was correct. I must admit, I didn't do that on purpose. But it is highlighted a very clear point when we're doing rank and GWL calculations.
Do you want me to finish that one off, you will, or have you got the
absolutely jump in there, Paul, because I think I'm drowning here at the moment.
Go on, I'll do that for you. So the last rain interval was 17 minutes. We have that, and then as we've discussed, we had the 4 minutes from early on in the match. So we have 21 minutes we've lost.
Yeah.
You divide that 21. So now we're in the second innings. We're only losing 4. We're losing 1 over every 4 minutes. So in the first innings, you're losing 2 overs for every 8 minutes. If you have an interruption in the second innings, you're losing 1 over every 4 minutes. So we do 21 divided by 4 to get 5. So we've lost 5 overs from the 48. So that gives us a 43 over second innings. Then you need to work out how much time they've got to bowl the second overs in the second innings. So you multiply that 43 overs by 4 minutes per over, which gives you 172 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they've already been on the pitch for 84 minutes, which was the 16:32 to 17:56. So take away that 84 minutes and you have 88 minutes left. Everybody shout if you get stuck or if you think I'm wrong. Yep. 88 minutes, we're restarting at 18:13. So 88 minutes from 18:13 is 19:41. And if you remember from the discussions we just had, that the latest the match commends as the cessation time is 19:40. We can't end before that. The fact that we're 1 minute after it is perfect. That's, as Aidan said, you want to be within 3, 4, 5 minutes. So 19:41 is perfect. We know we've done everything right. Do you want me to go on, Will, or?
No. I'm listening and learning as it is. So yeah, go ahead.
And then, so that's the answer to B. So the second innings penultimate over. So remember, it's a 43 innings match, but because the overs have been reduced, the bowling side has only got to start the penultimate over. So the 42nd over. So they've got to be in position to start the 42nd over at 19:41. For a 43 over match, 3 bowlers can bowl 9 overs and 2 can bowl 8 overs. The power plays will be 9, 25 and 8. So that's, again, as Tony said earlier on, you get those power plays from the regulations. There's a big table in there. So you just, as simple as looking at 43 over match will always have power plays of 9, 25 and 8. And if you just do the additions, so we are in the 22nd over. We've had 21 overs. So we're right in the middle of the second power play. So there'll be 5 fielders in the ring and 4 outside when you restart. So that is C more or less. And then D, this time you do need a new DLS printout. Everything will have changed. I don't want to sort of, ideally I do give a rain sheet, those rain sheets that Peter Searson gives out. So you'd fill in one of those maybe for the scorers and for each captain, which would show everything we've discussed. So how many overs, the time they've got to bowl their overs by, the power plays and the bowlers allocations. And then verbally, I just say to the fielding captain, you need to start the 42nd over by 1941. They might also have some allowances that you've already given them. So you might be telling them, the cessation time is 1941, but I gave you 5 minutes earlier on for that injury. So you've actually got to start by 1946. That should be it, Will. Or yours, Will.
A big question that I just wanted to jump in. Sorry, this is a question that I built up myself. Because you're obviously going to be dealing with a wet ball, or certainly a wet ball in certain circumstances, would you give them, say, a minute every time they needed to dry the ball? Or would you just, put a number at the back of your mind and say, right, I'm going to give you this because you've got a wet ball to deal with for this number of overs?
You're already giving them an overs,
Great.
You're giving, instead of them having to be in position to bowl the last over, they have an extra 4 minutes, because you're giving them, they have to be in position to bowl the penultimate over. So that's included in that. I personally, it would depend on how wet it's getting, how wet it's been and sort of what condition everything is in. But as far as I know, that has already been built in to the allowances by giving them the penultimate over. But Paul might have more views on that.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Yeah. I mean they've got a bit of extra time, but if everybody's slipping around, and if I'd err on the side of being kind, but I probably wouldn't give them extra time for drying the ball, Will. But if I don't know, if a batsman dives to get in and his gloves are soaking and he went off and said, look, I can't grip my bat anymore, and it takes 30 seconds, I might give him 2 minutes, just to, because you don't want that argument at the end of the game where the fielding captain, you've just deducted them, 12 runs for being slow in their overs, and and the weather's been bad, and you've been trying to help everybody, and everybody's been helping you, and then you turn around and give them 12 penny runs. So
then you'll be the bad guy at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd always just try and be help. Don't take the piss and don't get carried away. But look, if they're maybe give them an extra minute and here and there.
If they're a minute or 2 minutes over, you could say it's our fault. If they're 5 or 6 minutes over, it's their fault. So
that's fair enough.
You'll find 1 or 2 minutes in order to try and help out the fielding side, and you're not doing it to work against anyone, but you don't really want to be given penalty runs. But if they're 5 or 6 minutes over, there's not really much you can do. Whereas if they might be a minute or 2 minutes over, it could be down to the fact that we only gave them a minute allowance for something when it was sort of 90 seconds they used up or something like that. So try and overcompensate if you must, really, within limits. You don't want them taking the piss out of you either.
I know, and as we've discussed throughout, communicate and discuss with your colleague timings, and penalties, allowances, all sorts of things. Make sure that you are happy with your colleague.
Just with regarding the over calculations as well, Will, I'm presuming that's assuming that the two bowlers, so you've done 21 overs, haven't bowled their 10 over allotments already.
Yep.
Yeah.
If they bowled their 10, there's not a lot you can do about that.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, my question that I wanted to ask links to that as well. Just that overs per bowler calculation. Do you mind just going through that again? Because you've now got 21 overs bowled. And
okay. When you come into the innings, you've 48 overs.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can have three bowlers who bowl 10.
Yeah.
And you can have two bowlers who bowl 9 to make your 48.
Yeah.
Okay. If two bowlers bowl 10, there's not a lot you can do about that because they've bowled their allotment under the terms under the conditions that you had before the cessation and the suspension of play.
Yeah.
You then have a new calculation which they must stick to for the remainder of the innings after that. That's the easiest way of explaining it. And you
yeah. So that is based on the. Is that then based on the 43 overs that you've now reduced the second innings to?
You're now working to a 43 over.
Yeah.
So if someone has done 10, that's fine. That's their 10, and they're done. You can't go back in the past.
Yeah.
So if someone has bowled 9, they can't turn around to you and say, "Oh, I was down to bowl the 10th." That's life. That's it. We're now playing with a new set of maximum spells.
Mm-hmm.
The maximum that you can bowl is 9. And these are parts of the discussions that would be that as the Aidan and Paul have called out quite rightly, is to have it with the fielding captain before you go out to the field to play.
Yeah.
Because he'll make his plans before he or she will make their plans before they go out into the field and take the field again.
Just a few things, and it'll be great if Paul and Aidan can help me out as well. When you're doing your calculations, there are two sets of numbers, one that are constants and one that are calculated. Agree with your colleague about the constant number, like when did the interruption start? When are you going to go back? What time? Those are the things that are there. They say that all the other calculations are based on those numbers. So agree with your colleague on those timings and everything, and then go separately and do the calculations. And then get back and see if you both match your calculations match. So that's how I do it. If there's anything.
Yeah, but I'd be the same. So there'd be, you'd agree.
If it's a thing, if there's a rain break, I would, and if I'm standing with Aidan, we'd say, okay, it's in the second innings. We say, okay, we stopped at 5:56. We have a look around and say, okay, we're going to be starting at around 8 o'clock, around 6 o'clock. We say we'll start in 13 minutes or whatever. We can start in 13 minutes. So we agree those 2 points, 5:56 and 6:13. Those we agree, and then we go separate and calculate the rest of the things.
Right.
And then come back and compare our notes. So now that you need to give yourself enough time to, do the calculations and everything. So this is, as I said, this is just a hypothetical situation which you have only 17 minutes and all that stuff. It probably wouldn't be like that. You'll sit down. Is that okay? Anything I've said wrong in this case?
I'm just going to I'm going to go on top of you there. I was told by Paul Reynolds from my first match, we had the Lane Cup in Marion in my first year, and he told me that we should do the calculations separately and then come back and talk about them, and then we can I know that wasn't it's only a T20, but he just still told me to both of us to go off our separate ways, do the calculations, and then we can compare, because if you keep looking over someone else's shoulder, you'll never understand how to do calculations.
Just be aware that you still have to watch the ground and everything while you're doing all these calculations and everything. So there's something that you need to do also.
That is the point that I was going to wrap up with about obviously you have your calculations and like, as I say, that document that we have on the website. Please, before you have your first match, make sure you've read that and understood it, because that is going to be the standard that each official and each umpire is going to be expected to follow throughout the season. There's no point, like with Law 42, some people allowing some things, and then your mate who does exactly the same does something completely different the following week for exactly the same set of conditions. You're going to have players left, right, and centre starting to question. So please follow the standard. Yeah, I'm just gonna bring it up so we can discuss it here now. Peter quite kindly shared the link to it earlier on the chat. So if you're looking for it, it's on the chat. I'll just share it here again. Nope, that's not the one. Not allowing me cut and paste it into the chat. Peter,
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh dear. Sorry, Peter. Would you mind sharing the screen here? I'm having all sorts of problems here at the moment. Peter?
I'm not sure he's there. Just now I stepped out of the room.
It's the link, Evan. You don't need to.
Yes.
It's on the link there. No, it's on chat, and we'll send it on. You can send it on the WhatsApp as well, and
yep, I'll send it on. That's no problem at all.
Tony, you could email it as well.
Yes, yeah, we'll do.
Okay, so just to read through it, because Peter's sharing, so I can't knock him off. Have you carried out an inspection of the whole playing area at no faster than a walking pace, including the area immediately beyond the boundary where fielders may field or catch the ball? Obviously, when you're walking around, you're making sure that you're not bringing up water. That's why you're not doing it running around at a walking pace. Do the bowlers have reasonable footholds? As in the presentation earlier, they have to be able to have a grip when they hit the ground. Likewise with their run-up. Do all the fielders have the power of free movement around the ground? Can they move, turn, and run at full pace without slipping? As I said to you earlier, some players might say it's perfectly fine. It's your judgment call whether or not they'll be able to field properly, run properly, and throughout. Goes through various others. There's 9 points there, and then you have the guidance for thunder and lightning at the end. Is a lightning strike on the ground? Obviously, you call them as suspension to play immediately. Is there lightning in the air? Obviously, again, suspend play. When suspending play, make sure that steel covers aren't put onto the pitch. If they want to put tarps on, that's up to them. And play does not resume until after 30 minutes after the last lightning. Okay, so those are the points that I wanted to raise this evening, and we'll carry on the discussion if anybody wishes to carry on the discussion.
Well, I have to leave now. I would like to thank Will for doing this, and I would thank the members for attending. But unfortunately, there must be an awful lot of members who know everything about GWL, because we only had 24 members listening to it. So I just hope they read the regulations and know what to do. Anyway, I have to leave. I can't stick it anymore. I have to get up out of my seat. Thanks very much for attending.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Just before we do go, I know it's a question that's been raised by a number of people, some of whom aren't actually on the meeting tonight. Peter, do you want to give us an update regarding insurance, or is it Tony who's going to give us an update regarding insurance, please?
I can give an update. The insurance has gone through to the insurer, and we are waiting on a quote back, which we will get. We are not going to use Cricket Leinster insurance. It's just, I don't know what's with Cricket Leinster. I'm not giving out to anyone who works for Cricket Leinster involved. It's just, I don't know what the thing is. So we're getting our own insurance, and that will be billed as part of your sub. So you won't be paying, or you might. We're hopefully it'll be billed part of your sub. If not, it could be the €8 added on like last time, or as a few years ago. But we will let you know in the days to come. It is a 32 county insurance policy. So if you have to travel on the other side of the border for Cricket Leinster or anything else, you will be covered. Tony, you might go on to butt in there.
No, I mean, I knew we were discussing it. I didn't realise any decision had been made.
Oh.
But anyhow, that's a discussion for another time. The only other thing I'd like to remind people is about vetting and clothing orders. With vetting, obviously those who've submitted documentation, it's in the works. I've been speaking to Cricket Ireland about it. They are taking a little bit longer this year because I suppose a lot of people doing it in a hurry, and there's a lot of new people involved. It's not just us. There's one person in Cricket Ireland who handles all of them. So anybody who hasn't put it in, please do. Also to remember that when you get the letter back from Cricket Ireland, they send it to you. They don't send it to us. So you have to pass it on to us. The other thing then is clothing, that I'll be putting in an order to O'Neill's very shortly. I've only had 11 or 12 people actually put in clothing orders, so we need them pretty quickly from those who haven't put them in. And obviously, existing members, if you need new gear, let us know as well, because I know one or two people were asking about that before. So let me know if you need new gear. So that's it. But just please, as soon as possible. Thank you.
Food is ready.
Sounds like someone is getting dinner in the background. So unless anybody wants to raise any other points, I bid you adieu, and we hope to have another session next week that'll be discussing Law 42. Following that, we will have on Friday week, we will be discussing the regulations of the upcoming season, and that will be a very interesting discussion altogether, because we're obviously going straight into T20s, and then we'll also be discussing the forthcoming longer versions of the game that will be happening in July and towards the end of the season. If there are any further questions, please contact us by the website, or if you wish to contact us directly by phone, by all means, there's no problem. I'll happily take a phone call from anybody. Okay, thank you very much.